One piece of advice that I would offer to those dental students who are preparing to apply to orthodontic residency would be
Welcome to Dental Bros Podcast. This series is Road to Residency. Today, I have my dear friend, Joshua. Thank you for coming to this podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Joshua. I'm Jay's friend from school. We're both D4s together, and I'm really excited to be on the podcast today.
Joshua and I have been working towards getting to residency, specifically orthodontics, for quite a long time. And we both matched. Lucky for me, easy for Joshua.
Definitely lucky.
And today we're going to talk about some of the journeys that we both took and possibly some of the advices that viewers can enjoy.
Absolutely.
Would you like to tell the audience where you got matched and which field?
Yeah, absolutely. So I matched at SLU, which is St. Louis University, at the orthodontics residency. So very
amazing
thankful,
program.
Very excited. Yeah, it's an amazing program.
Let's go back a little bit, okay?
Sure.
Do you remember the first time we met?
I do.
How did we become friends?
Yeah. Okay. So from what I remember, correct me if I'm wrong. We started school on, I think it was the end of July in 2020. And so this must have been like the second week of August. And what I remember is we're at Handel's Ice Cream.
Yes. Oh, you remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We're at Handel's Ice Cream. And I didn't even introduce myself to you. I think I just walked up to you and I said, "That's a really nice ring you have on. Is that a Cartier ring? Do you remember this?"
Yes.
And then you were like, "Yes, this is a Cartier ring." And then we realized that we both live like not very far from each other.
Yeah.
And we became the best of friends right from the get-go.
Right from the get-go.
Is that how you remember it? Is that what happened?
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
I'm pretty sure that's how it all started.
That's how. Oh my gosh, my face is red. Tell me about my first impression.
I thought, wow, this guy has a nice ring. That was my first thought. And I was just meeting everyone, you know, it was all exciting and new and it was really easy to talk to you. I remember we just clicked right away and became friends really quickly. So
yeah, I think that's the first time I remember it as well. I think we kind of passed by, said hello during orientation.
Probably so.
But the first time I actually meet you was Handel's, and you're such a nice guy. I felt like nobody can make this guy mad. Like, you're so nice.
And now you know better, right? That we've hung out more.
Still stay the same. I think I got closer to you as we did more of your. So Joshua did a lot of barbecuing at his place. Was that your yard, or there was a yard in front of your house?
There was an empty lot behind my house that now has a house on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay.
But yeah, no, that was not my property, but great place for a barbecue.
Yeah, you would invite everyone, and then we would love to go and just have good time, talk to people. You kind of like made that event for a lot of us, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, those are good times.
Those are good times. And then come around like T2 year, I think we're just talking about ortho residency or orthodontics in general. And rest is history, huh?
It is. It went fast.
It went fast. How was dental school for you?
I would say overall it was very positive. And in the moment, sometimes during challenging courses or difficult days, you know, it's hard to remember what the vision was, what the greater purpose is. But overall, looking back, you know, with 2020 hindsight, I can say that I feel like the school's prepared me very well for what's coming next. I've made a ton of friends, and I think I've progressed so much along with everyone else in our class. And I'm just so thankful for these past almost 4 years now.
Almost 4 years. Wow. Time flew by.
It did.
After going through all those experiences, what got you into orthodontics? Like, what attracted you into this field?
Initially, I was interested in other fields.
Just to have an open mind, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was more like a process of elimination, you know. I was always intrigued by specialties and by getting the concept of getting really good at a single thing. And the more I learned about other specialties, the more I realized that either it wasn't really my style, or, you know, I didn't really fit in with that sort of mentality, or I just didn't enjoy it, you know. And then with orthodontics, everything checked out. Everything made sense. I liked all of it. And the more I shadowed And the more I learned about it, the more intrigued I became.
I see. And then once you got interested, what were some of the steps that you took, Joshua?
From the get-go. So as soon as I realized that I was genuinely intrigued by orthodontics, I went to the internet, and there's not a lot of information
There
out
isn't.
there. It's like trying to get into a secret club, some secret organization. You're not really sure how it works or who to talk to. So, which is kind of the opposite of dental school. I felt like there's so much content online. My undergraduate institution had a whole office just for pre-dental people where we could go and ask questions and meet with an advisor, and that doesn't exist for specialties. So I sought out upperclassmen who had applied and matched or were in the process of applying to orthodontic residency. Asked them a ton of questions and kind of got a feel for what the timeline's supposed to look like. I think ortho's a very timeline specific, endeavor. It's very much like you don't have to follow a checklist per se, but there are certain things that need to happen, in order to be successful. And so that was the information that I sought out from friends that we worked on figuring out together. And so I think for me, it started with research. I was able to get in research right away when I started in dental school, and got into a great group, and we were able to present and publish a couple projects, which was awesome. And then shortly thereafter, I started working on, I learned about the GRE. You have to take the GRE, which seems like it might be kind of a maybe less productive use of time. But I think it was good that I took the time and set aside time to prepare for it earlier on, because for me personally, if I had to study for boards and the GRE at the same time, it would have been too much. Like that, for me personally, that would have been a lot. It was good for me just to be able to dial in on the board exam and focus on that. So I was able to do the GRE first and move forward from there.
So to summarize, you kind of got information of what you need to do to be a competitive applicant.
Yeah.
And one of them was research, and you took an initiative to start that right away. And then you found out GRE. How long did you study for GRE, Joshua?
I studied for, it was funny. I used a prep program online that would send notifications, every significant milestone of how much time you had studied. I remember signing up for the GRE, and then the day before I took it, I'm studying, and I get this email notification saying, "Congratulations, you've just studied your 100th day." For the GRE.
Wow.
So 100 days.
100
is
days.
how long I
Oh
studied
my
for the
goodness.
GRE. Yeah.
The fact that you put that much effort in it shows how much you wanted this, because not many people can study for 100 days for one, especially GRE, because it's not entertaining by far.
It's not an entertaining test, no. But I think there is some importance to it. A lot of orthodontic residencies have a Master of Science attached to it. And they want you to be able to competently write a thesis, and they don't want to hold your hand through the process. So if you can do well in the writing portion in particular, is what I've heard, then that can be really beneficial for you.
Back to the questions. About this process, maybe you started during your second year, Joshua,
Yeah.
right? And then after third year, we started applying.
Yes.
And so it took about 2 years almost to kind of complete your application, or the audience or who are listening to this. What's one thing that you would not do, or would not stress about, or one thing that you would do extra, maybe one of each?
Oh, sure. One thing I know for sure, I wouldn't call it a critical mistake.
Okay.
But one thing that I did that if I could go back, I would not have done, is halfway through my D3 year, I started visiting orthodontic residencies. Yes. And I would just go out and be like, hey, I'm going to take a couple days off and I'm going to go visit this residency because they look cool online, or I know someone that went there. I'm going to go check it out for myself. And not with the intent so much as to get myself out there, but just to really see what it was like. And so I did that. And from what I could tell, they were largely positive experiences. But so many of those places that I went to, maybe half, didn't invite me to interview there. So it was like, man, I went to all this effort and time, and it didn't even count for anything, you know? So that would be one piece of advice I would give is, you know, don't feel like you need to go out and visit these places per se, because at the end of the day, you know, what it comes down to is how complete is your application? How prepared are you as an applicant? And are you able to interview well?
I totally agree with that one. Like if I were to give one advice is that don't be too stressed about going to externships. I think I did the exact same
You did the same thing, right?
Exact same thing. At first it started off as I want to look good on application. Like it's just to impress people. And down the road, it actually became something for me. Like I actually want to know how other programs are like. It was for me. Behind that, I was hoping maybe I can leave a good impression so that they can remember me when I do apply. But just like you mentioned, more than half for me didn't invite me for an interview. So I would say it's not, I mean, if you do want to go, you know, extern to these programs, great, but don't have hopes of, okay, once you go, they're going to send you an invite. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Make sure you don't have that expectations. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's one thing that you would do more?
Oh, that I would have spent more time on or invested more into? Looking back, I probably would have spent more time. You know, there's some negative content on the internet, and I usually like steer clear of it. But I think that I would have just had an open mind about all information. You know, I think I subconsciously filtered out all that negative information about different programs or about, you know, do ortho this way, don't do it this way. When in reality, I should have just taken it all in, you know, and like taken everything with a grain of salt. But I like hyper focused on the positive things because I wanted it to work so bad, you know? Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I was so focused on like everything great about, you know, the whole process and about being an orthodontist that, you know, realistically there are things that are not as good. And I wish that I would have, you know, paid maybe a little closer attention to different different nuances, very like minutia, very small things that maybe give a more realistic perspective of what the application process is like and what interviewing is like and what residency is like. One example is, and this is, you know, just off the top of my head, many residencies just have a couple people in them, right? And so it can be an amazing program with an amazing program director. But if you're in the middle of the Midwest, you know, in some kind of more rural area and it's you and like two other people, you better be ready to be best friends with those two other people. And people don't talk about this, right? You know, so you have to be, that's just one example, right? Like you have to take everything into account. Like there's only two other people here and they're going to be my friends or this is going to be a miserable 3 years. So little nuances like that, you know?
Gotcha. Okay. For me, something that I would do more is I think I kind of underestimated the application process. I kind of thought that it's going to be similar to applying to dental school because the portal is like almost exactly the same.
Yeah, aesthetically, it looks similar.
But when you dive into it, there are some certain questions like, oh, what should I do? What should I put in for this column and so forth? So I wish I asked upperclassmen a little bit more. I think I had the chance to ask, but I just kind of overlooked that portion of it, I guess. And another thing that I would do more 100% is, so when I was applying, I only applied to the school that I can see myself in. I think that's my mistake because this is a long process, which means that your mental health should be at the top of the level when you go into the interview. It should not be like sad or discouraged. And for me, I've gotten my interviews quite late in the game that it's all I had. So I was very desperate, you know. So I wasn't quite myself fully 100% when I was at the interview. With that being said, I would apply more broadly. And whether I go to that program or not, or whether I'm privileged to be interviewed at certain programs, doesn't matter. Like I should try to get as many interviews as possible so that when the time comes and I interview at a place that I really do want to go, I'm ready. Like there is something that you can learn from each interviewing process, I feel like. I've only attended 4 programs, but each time my interviewing skills improved. regardless of how much I practice with people and things like that, it's different game when you're
Yeah.
actually there. So the more interviews you attend, the more polished you're gonna be in the actual scene. I think that's very important.
100%.
Yeah, but it's not like we're gonna ask someone to apply to like all 70 programs, but at least a little bit more than what you normally apply. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would definitely encourage everyone to stretch themselves a little bit, whatever you think is a reasonable amount, add a couple more.
Add a couple more.
Because what I noticed is that many programs that, maybe I would consider myself underqualified even to interview at, I got interviews at.
I don't. Okay, so
And-
let's get this clear. I don't think you're qualified.
And vice versa too. Some I thought like, yeah, why would they not give me an interview? And I didn't get an interview. So you really can't guess from the beginning of who is going to invite you to interview there.
That is so true.
You have to be willing to cast a wide net and pay a little bit more up front, but ensure that you're going to have more options later.
Yeah. Whenever I went to an interview, I felt as though anyone could get in because there are so many great applicants.
Yes.
Like it's mind blowing. You almost feel as though, I mean, I try really hard and you try really hard and we feel confident that we are good applicants. But there are certain applicants that make me feel like I did nothing. Like
Totally.
You know what I mean,
I know
Joshua?
exactly what you mean.
And so sometimes I feel like there's no way I can compete with you. Like nobody's competing with anyone in that interviewing room, but it feels like that. Like I feel so low. So in the same line, like you should really apply broadly so that you can find a program and a place that you feel like you fit in,
Totally.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of it. I remember with a couple interviews, I would sit down and I would not even say anything, hadn't introduced myself or anything. I'd just walk into the room at the beginning of the day and the program director would come up to me and say, "Hey, Joshua, how was the flight from Utah?" Like they knew exactly who I was among this group of, a couple dozen people. They knew who I was. And other times I would sit down, during the interview and they'd be shuffling through papers and be like, "Okay, what's your name again?" Like really that happened to me. So you never know who's going to appreciate what you have to offer. And just like you said, it's difficult sometimes when you see so many just well-rounded, amazing applicants, which everyone that I interviewed with was that way. But you have something unique to offer. Every person is different, has different strengths, and different programs are going to appreciate what you have to offer. And so you just have to, in a way, it's a numbers game. You have to present yourself accurately, X number of times, so that whoever's most likely to appreciate those traits you have is going to rank you high, and then you'll match with them.
We passed your residency prep phase. Now you've done your interviews.
Yeah.
Now comes a time that has a deadline. November 13th, I believe. You have to rank your programs.
Yes.
It must have been a little bit of a headache to a certain degree. You have few things to consider, right?
I did.
So talk us through how you were feeling and what were some of the factors that you were looking for
in ranking the different programs that I visited.
Or maybe it was easy cut for you. I don't know.
It was interesting. The first, the top 3 or 4 were very easy, and there were just minor things, minutia that separated them in my mind. Truthfully, of all the programs I visited, they were all, they're all excellent and amazing in their own way. And it was, in some cases, difficult to distinguish. But for me personally, I felt like I connected better with people and that, the structure, the tenets of a program a little bit better. And that's what helped me. So the first couple were pretty easy to rank for me. And then the middle ones were the difficult ones, There was one I did not feel comfortable at. That was the last.
Okay.
But the ones in the middle were tricky because I've heard of people matching, on there with like their 8th, ranked program, which is insane, but that happens sometimes. And so I wanted to make sure that, hey, if I end up going to the school that I ranked literally number 8, am I going to be okay with that? So yeah, there's a lot of stress and some lost sleep over, man, is this the right order? And I think people, I always ask people who did match, is there any strategy at all to this? And the answer was always the same, that, really you should just rank the programs in the order that you want to attend them.
Not by how you think the interview went.
Right.
Okay.
That's the tricky part, because sometimes I would interview, especially as time went by, I felt like you mentioned, I got better and better at interviewing, I didn't even, like at the beginning, I would stay up kind of late the night before in my hotel room, reading over my CV, like they ask me anything about this, I'm going to be ready. And by the end, I'd just show up and, like get DoorDash and watch TV until too late, and like barely get to the interview on time the next day. And those were my best ones towards the end. And so, it was like a process for me of slowly, I felt like I got more and more comfortable with them. And it was hard because at the beginning, those were some of my favorite programs when I was maybe a little more uptight or unsure of what to do. And by the end, I was like, man, if I could go back now, if I could restart right now, that would be perfect. I'd be so ready to just go back to the beginning and do all this again. But it's a process. It's, a journey, and you just got to take it as it comes.
Gotcha. So to summarize, eventually you ranked it based on where you want to be, not how the interview went.
Right. And my initial thought was, I'm going to be strategic. How many seats are there? How well do I think I interviewed? But really, I ended up just kind of following my gut instinct of, where do I think I would genuinely be the happiest? What program, spoke to me the most? Where did I connect with the people the best? And that's how I determined my order.
I see. Well, let's go back to that morning. You probably found out that morning.
Yeah.
Were you able to sleep very comfortably? How were you the night before? Because that's very important.
I remember the day before I was eating dinner with some friends, and they were like, "Are you scared for tomorrow?" And I was like, "What's tomorrow? It's Monday." And they're like, "Yeah, don't you find out tomorrow?" I was like, "Yeah, but I wasn't worried about it." I slept fine. Somehow it was, I don't know. It just wasn't, I've been stressed in this process, but it was months ago, or like in an interview, but leading up until I knew it was all out of my hands, there was nothing I could do about it. And so I genuinely, legitimately was not stressed. I woke up the day of and went on a run like I usually do. And someone texted me. I thought we found out in the middle of the day. And so I was not anticipating like early morning. And my phone, I had a bunch of notifications from people saying, "Hey, did you match?" And they were like, "What? Tell me what's going on." I was like, "What are you talking about? It's not supposed to happen for a couple hours." And then I saw the email and I was like, "Oh, there it is. It's done."
Wait a minute. So, okay, two things. You go run every morning?
I try to exercise in some form every morning, not always running, but typically before school I exercise.
Wow, okay. So this is how the elites are made.
No, not even.
So you got those text messages. You went through your email and saw there was your match. I forgot the title.
Yes.
Subject just says like net matching services result or something.
Yeah.
So when you saw that, did you like get nervous at all, or did you just press?
I was like, "Oh, it's here." I
Really?
just clicked on it. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. That is crazy. And you're like, "Oh, I matched to my first one."
Yeah. I think I laughed out loud. I think I was like genuinely like very ecstatic.
Ecstatic. That's
for a
the
minute.
word. The first person you call.
I called, let me think about this. Who did I call first? I think I called my mom, but she was like already at work, like early. So I called my dad and I just started talking to him. I was like, "Hey, how's your day? You have a good Sunday?" Yeah, we're just kind of talking. And then like a minute in, I saved up. I was like, "Hey, I matched." And I told him where.
And how was his response?
He was super excited for me. He did grad school in the same city.
St. Louis.
He also did he did his physical therapy training in the same city. So I was almost born there actually, but then they moved. My parents moved, and my mom did her nursing program in the same city.
Really?
So I'm going to.
It comes in a full circle now.
It does. It really came full circle. So they were extra excited because of that.
I see. They must know the city kind of well, like neighborhoods or.
They do. Yeah. Yeah, they do. They have some fun stories.
Okay.
Got flooded out of their apartment one time, like completely underwater.
No.
So I guess there's there's the potential for that. But no, they loved it. They had a great time there. They loved studying there, and it's funny that
You're going back there.
I'm
Okay.
following in their footsteps. Yeah,
I guess you're going to the high rise this time, though.
I guess so. Yeah.
Wow, that is so different from my experience. So the night before, I couldn't sleep until 2 a.m. And I knew from previous years that you were going to get an email like before 8 o'clock.
How did I not know this?
And so I just didn't know when. But then the night before, I also went into Match website and they said your results will be posted 12 p.m. Eastern time. So that's why I thought, okay, I'll know at 10.
That's what I read. That's what I thought too.
But I slept at 2. I woke up at like 5:30. I couldn't sleep and I went to shower. And actually, before I went to shower, I just was on my phone and I went to SDN, the place you shouldn't be going when you're super.
The morning of the match. That's like the absolute last place you should be.
And people were saying they got their results, but they wouldn't post whether they got matched or not. So I was kind of getting scared. I took off my notification the night before for my email, just in case they say you didn't match or you matched in the subject line. And I got mine too at 6:42. I remember the time as well. Wow. I couldn't click on it, so I had to go shower.
You left it.
I left it. I didn't touch it.
You saw that it arrived and did not open it.
I did not open it.
Wow.
I went to shower. I stayed in the shower for about good 15 minutes. I told myself that no matter what happens, I told myself that I try my best. I try my best, and there's nothing I would do any differently. I chose the best choices I can make each time.
I love that.
And I mean, doesn't mean they're the best, but for me,
sure,
those are the best choices. No regrets. 2, even if the results is bad, it does not mean it's the end of the world. And no matter what, I'm proud of you, Jay. Like, I was like a third person thing, you know? And then 3rd, if I do get matched, I will never forget this feeling of, I wouldn't say desperation, but more like this earnest feeling that I really want to become an orthodontist.
Yeah.
That I will never forget this, and I'll try to become the best orthodontist that I can be. Yeah. Those are the 3 things I'll keep telling myself. And I got out of the shower and turned on my GoPro. I wanted to record my emotions. And
wait, so you hadn't opened it and you were going to get your raw reaction. Oh my, that's brave, man. Wow.
Hey, that's more brave to just click on it. That takes courage.
Or maybe a lack of emotional intelligence, one of the two.
I turned that on and clicked on it. But right before I click on it, I have my University of Minnesota folder that I got from the interview. And I covered my monitor where the email is going to pop up.
With that folder?
With that folder. And then I click on the email. And slowly, one sentence by one sentence, I would slide the folder down.
No way.
Yeah. It took forever, and I could hear my heartbeat. I could sense that my breathing is getting harder and harder. And there was like 3 sentences, and there's a little bit of space. And after the space, it either says congratulations or I don't know what the other is actually. And there was a little space, and I saw the top of a C. So I matched, right? I matched. Oh my gosh, wow. I feel so relieved. And that was a huge relief that I matched. Now the problem or the issue is where my number 1 was obviously Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I would just like slide down a little bit more. And when I saw like M, I think I just shouted. It's crazy. It was like best moment in my life. So by far. Yeah, so that was my experience.
Wow, polarized, like very distinctly different experiences.
It was nerve-wracking.
Wow.
I wish I had your confidence.
Well, I don't know how to call it confidence, but
yeah, it was a good moment. It was a good moment.
I love that.
I'll show you that recording.
I'd love to see that.
I mean, I don't look good, but you can sense the emotion, you know?
It's real. It's real. That's awesome.
And then that day, I remember Monday, we had clinic full day. I think
we did.
We just went into clinic just like it's a normal day.
Yeah.
Wow, like, that's amazing. I find that very amazing because it shows how big of a person you are. Like,
Oh, thanks, man.
you know what I mean. This big accomplishment that you work really hard for is amazing, but it still won't change my day to day. I find that very admirable because I took the day off. You know, you know what I mean.
The truth is, I had maxed out my days off, so I couldn't
you
actually
could-
take it off. I had no choice.
Oh, modest. Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, like this guy's different. Yeah. So that was a good moment for me.
I love it.
Yeah. Now past the ranking and getting matched. Now that you're gonna become an orthodontist, do you have any idea on like what kind of orthodontist you want to become, or is there like a role model or anything?
This is a great question. I think it's something that's kind of overlooked too. In a way, I think every dental profession has every dentist, every specialist has the opportunity to influence people for the better, and not just through dentistry per se, but just the way you carry yourself and how you interact with people. And I've shadowed in a lot of offices like you, and some of them it just feels like you're at like a factory of some kind, and they're just trying to get through people as fast as they can, and there's no real interaction there. But there are other offices where the provider will take the time to actually make eye contact with their patient and talk with them. And I don't think you need to spend 15 minutes, doing small talk, but 2 minutes, or just a couple seconds of really, genuine getting to know someone and spending time with them in that way builds a relationship of trust. And I think it just helps everything go more smoothly. You could be the most competent dentist or orthodontist in the world, and if your people skills are terrible, then you're gonna have a lot of empty chairs.
Right.
But conversely, as we're progressing and getting better, and if we really focus on the people rather than the product, then I think that's how we make the most progress. So to answer your question, type orthodontist I want to be is one that is like a genuine, like trusted friend, not just like a healthcare provider, but someone that patients feel comfortable talking to. And if they have a real question, and they're concerned about something, they could ask me and I could do my best to help them out,
Gotcha. Someone who patient can comfortably communicate with.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been I've had a couple of different dentists, and I've been in the chair before and really wanted to ask a question. Like I was concerned about something. I got a connective tissue graft done, like a gum graft, and I was scared about it. And I didn't know what to expect or like what recovery was like or anything. And I just wanted to ask so many questions. And my dentist was like, yep, okay, we'll get you that referral. See you later. And like walked out, and I was like, So, like 2 minutes would have been enough for, and it would have been hard for him to just kind of like help me chill out a little bit. And conversely, when I got to the periodontist who did the procedure, he said, you know what, I'm booked out, but you can come in during my lunch hour. He said that to me.
What a difference.
Yeah, huge difference, and it made a world of difference for me. So sure enough, I came in at like noon, and I was the only patient in there, and he did that for me, and I felt I was very much put at ease by that particular specialist. So it's all about taking the time to, get to know people and take care of them. No matter what I do, I want to like be on the front lines. I want to be a part of it,
Gotcha.
because that's your whole occupation. It's your whole everything. All the work I put in academics and in school up until this point is so I can do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I want to actually, every day I want to be in there. I want to do it, and I want to be connecting with people and making a difference in my own small way. So one piece of advice that I would offer to those dental students who are preparing to apply to orthodontic residency would be, I think it's easy to get caught up in the details of a lot of different things as you're preparing to apply to orthodontic residency. Some of those things may include, the font of your CV, while that, and that's just an example, but while that is significant, you do want your CV to be complete, thorough, aesthetically pleasing. You can over prepare, and it's important to remember that you have finite amount of time as you're preparing for this. Ideally, you'll match while you're in dental school. That's the ideal. And if not, there's definitely possibilities afterward. But ideally, you just go straight from dental school into orthodontic residency. And if that is your timeline, then you have, a very finite period that you can make that happen. And it's easy to get caught up in everything from, I need to work on the 21st draft of my personal statement to, I need I need to bump that margin over like 1/8 of an inch to make it look just right. And you can spend a lot of time on things that really, if you just take that, if you have a bigger perspective and you step back a little bit, maybe you that time could be better used at, doing something else.
True.
So what are those things that you could, that you really need to put time into? Not everyone will agree with this. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I think that studying for the GRE can really pay dividends for you. There were numerous residencies that I interviewed at where the director would ask me, how did you score so high on this section of the GRE? And it was something that stood out,
It actually stood out when I saw your resume too. And I think I know what it is. I will edit this out, but
Sure.
It's a writing, huh?
It was the writing.
Okay.
It was the writing. So I was fortunate enough to do well on a section that evidently some residency directors cared about. That was one thing I'm glad that I put time into. I'm glad that I put time into becoming well-versed, or at least practicing talking about myself, in a not aggressive way or not too assertive, but just genuinely having conversations about things that I had done, and why it mattered and why I could contribute something. Those aren't conversations you typically have with your friends,
Right.
You don't just go around telling people usually why you'd be a good candidate for something. But that's what they, to a degree, they need to know that. And it will become evident as they get to know you and talk to you. But in some cases, it's appropriate to verbalize, this is how I could contribute to your program. This is what makes me different. I got asked that many times, We have many applicants from your school. Why should we consider your application? What do you have to offer that no one else has to offer? You need to be ready to answer questions like that.
That is good. Okay, so what other things can we work on? So you mentioned interview.
Yeah, interview preparation. Other things would include, I think it's important to take the time to really consider what programs, without even visiting, a program, or preliminarily kind of identify, okay, how much does this cost? Where is this place? Could I live in the place? Can I do that amount of time? With 2-3 other residents, or maybe a dozen other residents, and just kind of logistically try to take emotion out of it. It's so hard because we're so excited about it.
Right.
We've been preparing for how many years for this in one way or another, and we really want it to happen.
Really good. Let's give one more advice.
Sure. So I was going into my first interview. I was so unsure of how all the other applicants were going to be. I didn't know what the environment of an interview is like. And when you get your first interview, you're so excited and totally unsure of what to expect. And, you're dressed up in your best, and you're hoping you're going to put your best foot forward. And I was so impressed. I cannot overstate how impressed I was with all the other applicants that I met.
Yes.
It really is an amazing group of people. Orthodontics is such a niche specialty in its own right, and I think it attracts a certain kind of person, certainly. But there was I didn't sense a single time at any of my interviews throughout the entire process any competition between me and the other interviewees. Did you ever feel that? I didn't ever feel that.
Okay. I thought that, but I never felt from another applicant.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were not trying to be mean to me.
No.
It's really weird. We're all going for the same thing that has a limited spots, but didn't feel like a competition. But in my head, I was like, oh, I gotta be better.
Sure. Logistically,
Yes.
you know what you're up against, right? But when it comes down to it, interpersonally, it's like camaraderie. I tried to collaborate with people as much as I could, and that was reciprocated. I felt that too. People were very kind and inclusive, and it's really a non-competitive environment, even though, like you said, that there are odds, and you're up against those odds, but at the same time, it's really comforting to know that everyone's in the same boat. Everyone has different things to bring to the table. And I made friends, great friends along the interview trail. And sometimes I'd interview 3-4 times with the same people, same people. And it was, you have like an instant friend there, instant connection. And likely, I'm not in residency yet, but likely some of those people, if not all of them, also matched. And when we go to conferences and throughout a lifetime, there are relationships that start now. And if you foster those, then ideally, that the lifelong colleague mentality will carry you through your career.
Right. Well, you brought up such a good point. So many good ones. But one thing that's definitely a takeaway is people who got interview invites, most likely they have interview invites on other places too. Like there's not a single program that only recognizes one applicant. If that applicant is great, probably a lot of programs will recognize that as well. Yeah. Yes. So one way or the other, we're all gonna be colleagues at one point. You know what I mean? Whether it's this year, next year, or following year. So make sure that you show the best side. Like you don't want to be mean in any way.
Yeah.
And
especially at this level, This is the big leagues. That's what it feels like, at least. It feels very high stakes, maybe is a better way to say that. And so, you're dealing and interacting with, at least for me, some of the more, the most intelligent and well-rounded people I've ever met. I've met in the last 2-3 months, of my entire life.
That is so true. I mean, I'm sure it's the same for any other specialty as well. Yeah, but it's like such a blessing to be part of it,
It really
to
is.
be given a chance to be working towards the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
It is. It really is. And I think as we continue to progress in the field, we'll realize how interdependent we are on each other, Collaboration is key. We have to cooperate. We have to work well with each other. That provides the best care for people. If we're a bunch of disjointed, disconnected entities, then that doesn't work well.
You wouldn't go far.
You don't go far. Yeah. The community goes much farther than the individual. This is why society works the way it does, is because we depend on each other. So the same can be said of our profession. And I think the more we can keep that in mind, we're just going to go so much further and help more people make more progress, I think.
Let's say underclassmen.
Undergraduate or like younger dental students?
Younger dental students.
Okay.
At our school.
Okay.
Came up to you. Is a D3 right now. It's December.
Okay.
No research.
Okay.
No GRE.
Okay.
No leadership.
Okay.
Class rank, mid-table.
Okay.
And comes up to you and says, I really want to become an orthodontist now. I'm going to do anything I can within my ability, within my time, to be the best applicant. What would you say to them?
My logical brain would there'd be red flags and alarms going off. But so logistically, what is that person facing? They're going to be taking the board exam in the next 2, 3, 4 months. That's significant. They're going to be taking over in clinic as the D4s graduate. That's significant. They'll have a number of competencies that they have to complete in clinic. That's a big deal, so it's not like they have a lot of free time. Let's say this person is really smart could feasibly be at the top of the class intellectually, regardless of their previous performance, and they could make some pretty incredible things happen. What would I say they should prioritize if you're jumping on to ortho kind of last minute, like this person? Well, it's been done before. Most schools require a GRE, but not all of them do. You could consider schools that do not require the GRE. That would save you some time. Or if you're really smart, then you can take the GRE and do really well on it without preparing for very long. If you can get on a research project, you know what? I had an ongoing research project that I did not publish, that I did not complete, but I was working on it, and I put it on my CV, and people asked me about it. They cared about it because it was kairotic, or like it's happening right now. It's relevant today. I was still doing it. And so I got more questions about that than stuff that I published. So, they could just jump on a project and be honest and say, hey, you know what? I'm a little late to the game. I'd love to join your group, or however they want to present that, So never too late to start, I think. I mean, yeah, you could be too late, but let's say that you did have some time. You could make that happen. You could connect with people and get a group going and start something. Yeah, and truthfully, I think aesthetics is underrated when it comes to applying to orthodontics. And this is what I mean when I say that. I took a lot of care, not too much, but I put a lot of effort into making sure that my CV looked good. It was clean. It was organized. I had you look at it. I had some other friends look at it. People who were like English majors, They don't have to know anything about dentistry, but can you read this and understand it? I think that's how a CV should be read, even applying to a specialty like this. In predominantly layman's terms, can this be read and understood? I would say, make sure you have a very clean, very readable CV. And if you can have a powerful personal statement, I think every human on this planet has had significant experiences that make them who they are, and that have led them to want the things they want and pursue that path that they're pursuing. And so if you can articulate that, if you can put that vision into words and, and it flows and makes sense, then that can be powerful for you. And finally, if you've connected with people who would be willing to write you a letter of recommendation last minute like that, which, most reasonable people would be willing to help out in that way, then, you got that as well. So
I see.
I think to those who maybe jump on a little bit late to this, 100% give it a shot, give it a try. But be realistic too, allocate your time wisely and realize that, because you're a little bit late, you will have missed out on time. That is the crucial thing in all of this, is time.
Yes, time. Because a lot of these things have to be in motion already. It's not something that it just pops up.
Absolutely. In motion. That's the best way to say that.
Okay, then to that applicant, that case.
Yes.
Would the timing of application matter? Like apply early, apply late? What would you say from your experience?
I would say never apply late if you can help it. But you don't need to be the first one in either. Because I don't know the exact dates. Every program's a little different, They get your stuff and some of them don't read it for a month, So you have there's a little bit of a buffer period, like this interim time where they have your stuff and they're getting more and more and more and more. And then, okay, we're reviewing as of right now. So yeah, as far as timing goes and submitting application, I would say better to submit a very good looking application a month later than to submit something that looks like it was thrown together because it was thrown together, the first day that you can. So aesthetics is a big deal. These are people that care about aesthetics. They've spent a lifetime studying what looks good, dimensions and proportions mean everything in this field. And so that carries over into, in some ways, even subconsciously, every part of, what a person perceives. So yeah, I would say make it look good.
Make it look good. Okay. So just to summarize, if you're late in the game, if you have the time and the means to do so, try to score GRE really well. But if you don't think you can, there are programs which don't require them. Maybe look for them and see what they look for. And then try to get into research groups and start research. Doesn't have to be published by the time you apply, as long as you're working towards it or doing the research while you're applying. And then if you can, make your CV or every part of your application very neat and nice. And lastly, it's better to apply early than late as long as it is polished.
That's, my 2 cents, my opinion.
Okay. And this is from someone who got the most interview in this school. So probably it's worth to to listen.
Hopefully, I hope it's helpful.
Like last words or things you want to say to the audience. The audience can be anyone, but
Sure. Last thing for the audience, I would say, growing up, my mom would always say to me, don't give up what you want most for what you want at the moment. So, it's easy to do what is comfortable now, but if you're willing to be uncomfortable today, work hard for your goals, to achieve what you set your mind to, then, the future just opens up. Opportunities will open up for people who put forward that effort. So those would be my last words.
well, and well said, Joshua.
Thank
you
you
again for coming to the podcast.
Thank you, Jay.
And if there is an opportunity in the future, would you ever come back after when we're like a first or second year resident?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah?
For the continuity.
Continuity. Okay.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.